In a world of fake news, this is news you can trust. Defeating Satan by saying, "This ain't it, Chief." You're listening to the Babylon Bee with your hosts, Kyle Mann and Ethan Nicolle.
Welcome to the Babylon Bee News Show with Kyle Mann. That's the voice you're hearing in your ear canals dripping in there like gravy right now.
Like mashed potatoes.
Like mashed potatoes. And only subscribers would understand that joke.
Reference. That's a good way to start the show, is just referencing things no one will understand.
I'm trying to get people to subscribe, Ethan. Don't you want to bring home the bread and the cheddar?
This ain't it, Chief.
This is it.
This is the Chief.
This is it, Chief. We need a more
Where
positive...
Where does that come from?
This ain't it? I don't know.
That is, people act like they've just ended the conversation when they post that.
This ain't it. And
it has that like, no. You just stop talking about it. I was just like, I'm so cool.
I like the guy like cracking his fingers and typing in, like, this ain't it.
And they like rolling their eyes.
And then he logs off.
Yeah.
My work here is done.
But where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Dan,
can
you research where this ain't it, Chief, came from?
We would probably...
I'm on it.
We would probably know if we had our wives with us, because they knew a lot of things that we didn't know.
I don't think they'd know that.
They wouldn't care. They would say, why are you guys wasting time on
They
this?
wouldn't even know what we're talking about.
Okay, so according to Know Your Meme, this ain't it, Chief, is a slang phrase used in forums as a way to tell the poster that the thing they posted isn't as cool as they think, and the origin is... became popular in the summer of 2018.
From like Alien or something, like an alien's biting some guy. He's like, "This ain't it, Chief," or something.
So it says an early example was posted on the meme page Sunny Side Up on July 1st, and it shows like a picture with a headline. The headline says, "Move over, rompers. Lace shorts are the newest guy's fashion," and someone commented, "This ain't it, Chief."
This is a dead end.
Yeah.
I like that there's...
I thought it would be more interesting than this.
I like that there's like a researcher of memes.
Yeah.
The first known reference to this ain't it, Chief.
I would have thought there had been something more interesting. Like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that one scene with the bully. I've never seen it.
Actually, Charles Dickens coined this.
Yeah.
Something. There's usually something like that where it's way earlier than you thought.
Yeah, like after the beetle is like being horrible and Oliver stands up and says, "This ain't it, Chief." Right.
Well, sorry everybody that our wives aren't with us today. We got a lot of good feedback, and it made us feel terrible that now you're just going to hear us. But you can look forward to it every year. We will have our wives return.
That's right.
For the Valentine's Day podcast.
That was fun. And our wives are now drunk with power. They
want
to take over the show.
My wife listened to the podcast for the first time when she was on it. And then she goes, "This is actually pretty good."
My father-in-law listened to it. He's like, "You're like a whole different person when you're on that thing." Because I'm pretty much like a very introverted, quiet person in general.
You sound bright, clean, and articulate when you're on the Babylon Bee podcast.
Yeah, I save all my energy for the podcast, and then once it's over, I'm back to like Eeyore
done
from Winnie the Pooh. Yeah.
Well, everybody, this is the podcast where we cover the news, and we do that by reading Babylon Bee headlines. And then we do a topic of the week. And this week we're going to talk about books. Books that shaped our feeble little minds into the weird things that they are now.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. You look like you want me to expand on that. They have paper in them. They're thick. They have hard covers generally.
I set them up. Ethan knocks them down.
Yeah.
That's how this podcast
We're going to talk about books.
And then I just look at you. Go on about books, Ethan.
That's right, Kyle.
Webster's Dictionary defines books as... No, I'm just kidding. But it's going to be fun.
Whenever you talk about them, I start thinking about what am I going to say, what books am I going to talk about, because I didn't write it down.
I didn't write it down either.
We're going to find out when we get there.
And we're going to figure it out.
All right.
So it'll be a lot of fun.
But for now, let's talk about the weekly news.
Some things happened this week. Let's see what they were.
Every week, there are stories. These are some of them.
Well, I have some bad news, everybody. Everybody's favorite Democratic candidate has dropped out of the race.
Marianne Williamson?
Everybody's second favorite candidate has dropped out of the race. And that is Andrew Yang.
Dang. Dang, Yang.
Dang.
Sorry.
Stop. How far did we get into this story before you did a dang Yang joke? 5 seconds. So, the Babylon Bee reported that the Yang campaign collapsed after it was revealed that the $1,000 a month giveaway he was offering would actually be paid for with a $1,000 a month tax increase. Wah,
That's
wah,
just
wah.
true, though, right?
Sad trombone. Hey, you talked over my wah, wah, wah.
Sorry.
Wah, wah. Well, I guess some people were saying that his it was going to be paid for with he had some crazy plan to, like, I don't know, corporate earnings that so wouldn't be paid out of taxes. But every time I hear that, I'm like, it's coming out of taxes. Like, even if you get it from a corporation, eventually you're going to be paying more for it.
I thought he gave like a certain amount of people $1,000 at a debate. I didn't know he was going to give everybody in the world $1,000.
Well, that's why that was like
or not the world, but the United States.
Well, maybe the world too.
Yeah,
the
knows?
Democrats love everybody.
It's true.
Ethan.
Was he open borders? And I know a lot of them are open borders.
I don't know.
It's weird to want to be the president of a area and then want open borders because doesn't that like make it?
I want to be president of everybody.
Yeah. Does that mean? Yeah. I guess that's just saying you want to be complete totalitarian.
I'm going to create such a great utopia that everyone from the world is going to flood our country. Yeah, Yang. The $1,000 thing was basically his version of UBI, which is Universal Basic Income. So I think a couple of countries have tried some kind of a similar program, and it's basically because you are alive, because you are a citizen of this country, you get paid a certain amount of money a month because you are a thing that exists.
Like just for breathing.
I really broke down on the description of that at the end there.
That was rough.
But yeah, just for existing, you get money. Like, hey, Ethan, you woke up this morning. Great job, buddy.
Oh, thanks.
Here you go.
$1,000. Thank you. Now, doesn't it have an effect on things? Like if everybody knows that everybody already has $1,000, do they just kind of adjust the prices to that?
That's a good point. I don't know. I don't know what the effects have been economically.
Huh.
I'm not an economist.
Me either.
An economist.
One time Thomas Sowell was like, you don't want to know what happened if you gave everybody $1 million. If $1 million dropped on everybody's doorstep.
Well,
you know, and what he explained it, and I can't remember what he said. So I remember thinking, I got to remember this. This is like a really important thing to remember, and I've gone.
Yeah, you could see it on a smaller scale with things like college tuition, because basically the government gives everybody all these
so
loans.
It goes up.
Anybody can get a loan to go to college. Here you go, and then the prices go up. So I'm sure, as with everything, it's like the more extreme you go, the crazier the effects are. So if you're giving somebody a small amount a month, it's not going to have as big of an effect. And I think a lot of conservatives would probably support the UBI if it were to replace like all the welfare programs. You say instead of all this crazy Medicare, Medi-Cal, I'm moving my hands in a circular motion, so you're supposed to continue adding on to what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, and
Social Security, all the entitlement programs. You say we replace all the entitlement programs, everybody gets this amount of money.
You just get $1,000 a month.
I think people would say, well, it's not. I'd rather that the government doesn't give any money.
They'd
but
be
if they're going to,
satisfied for like a few months, and then suddenly be like, we need $1,000 plus this.
Ponies. Vermin Supreme offers ponies.
Free ponies.
Dan, you look pensive, like you want to say something.
I just really want $1,000.
Oh. Dan's mind is swimming.
No,
with I'm
kind of sad that he dropped out. I didn't agree with UBI but like what I did appreciate about Andrew Yang is that it seemed like of the Democratic candidates, he seemed like a human being that would talk to you and wouldn't, if you're a Republican or a conservative, it seemed like he would make an attempt to like, hey, let's talk about this issue.
Yeah, we could have been Andrew Yang. Like that should have been his slogan. Not a robot.
He sat in the very chair I sat in when we interviewed Dave Rubin.
Oh, yeah. Andrew Yang, not a communist.
Yeah.
Andrew Yang, I will not punch you in the face. I don't know. I'm just trying to spitball some slogans for him that could have worked.
I kept trying to think of Yang Gang jokes.
I know, and
Yang Gang.
The dang Yang Gang.
The old dang Yang Gang. Orangutan gang Yang. I don't know.
Yeah, like they're this street gang.
Yeah, like a street gang. Around. Like leaving heads on people's beds and stuff.
Yang Gang. Distributing $1,000.
Or they're like walking down the street snapping their fingers to the beat. Like they're in West Side Story. Oh no, here comes the Yang Gang.
Yeah, I think it was unfortunate that he got kind of tied in with that $1,000 a month thing was his main thing, because I do think he had some stuff to
I never
offer.
really heard much bad about him until that hit, and it was like, oh, that seems like kind of goofy.
Yeah, because it would end up being in addition to all the entitlement programs, and then it would just go up, and then it would just get worse. And so anyway, rest in peace, Yang. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Everyone pour a 40 out. A 40 of grape juice out for the Yang gang.
Drink some Tang.
For the...
Say some slang.
Pour out some Tang.
And sharpen your fang.
He went out with a bang.
And watch Ninja Turtles, because there's a bad guy named Krang.
All right, that's it. I'm cutting you off.
So where do his supporters go now that he's not in the race?
I don't know.
Because that was one of the things I was
don't know
seeing.
that he was that much of a player. I mean, he was at about 1% or, I don't know.
Man, 1%er.
I bet everybody was excited. I think we had some numbers on this, but I think everybody that was super excited about Yang probably isn't excited about anybody else. Because it was like with Ron Paul, like people were like all excited. I am a Ron Paul fan. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, I'm not going to, if he drops out, I'm not going to support anybody else. Sorry, Yang gang.
Yeah.
They were the guys with the blue hats on Twitter, right? When I think anybody who has a blue hat in their handle was a Yang gang guy.
Was it?
Is that what the blue hat was? I think so.
Remember when he was like squirting whipped cream in these guys' mouths while they're just kneeling down on the ground before him?
What was the point of that?
Like, what's funny is his lawyer or somebody's right next to him, and he's like, when he goes for the second guy, the guy kind of holds him. He's like, I think the optics are bad on this. You can see the guy stopping him, and he's like just like lost in the moment.
This is kind of connected to nothing, but remember when Ralph Northam was giving that speech apologizing for the blackface photo, and he was talking about how he used to do it. He used to dress up as Michael Jackson and moonwalk, and then he like looks around, and they're like, "Can you still moonwalk?" And he looks around like he's about to do it, and his wife grabs him by the shoulder or whatever, and she's
Stops
like,
him. I didn't see that.
She gives him a look and shakes her head, and he looks back. And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do it right now."
And when a reporter inquired if he could still moonwalk, the governor seemed to want to try.
Are you still able to moonwalk?
Inappropriate circumstances.
My wife says inappropriate circumstances.
Can you still do the tap dance?
So, Yang, maybe if you hadn't done the whipped cream thing, you'd still be in, but we're going to miss him. So
Cream ruined him. Now, this just in. Donald Trump did a flyover of the Daytona 500 in Air Force One. And so this is NASCAR related, apparently. And
yes, you might say that Daytona 500 is NASCAR related. Yes,
NASCAR that's a Daytona thing.
In the
Daytona
same
is a NASCAR thing. Is that like the Super Bowl of NASCAR?
Sure,
Okay.
We'll go with that.
So clearly, I'm not the key demographic for this. But anyway, our headline was the Bloomberg stops by Daytona 500 to hand out speeding tickets because he's a jerk. Who likes to hand out tickets, apparently.
We definitely need the parentheses at the end of each of our headlines. Because he is a jerk.
Because he's an idiot.
Yeah, Bloomberg is the chief moral legislator. He likes passing all these laws where you can't drink sodas.
Yeah. Soda, yeah. I was going to go somewhere with that, but I forgot. Was it straws or sodas? He doesn't like sugary drinks, right?
I'm sure he banned straws. I don't know. But yeah. The sodas was the thing. It was like, to stop obesity, you can only drink a 12-ounce soda or 16-ounce or something like that.
And no free refills? $1 million refills.
I like how his whole plan is foiled when someone just goes back for a second.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, so what would be the liberal equivalent to, like, if a Democrat candidate went out and pandered this heavily to his base? Because I don't know that Trump gained a single vote from doing this. But this is just
it's a long-standing tradition, though, because presidents are always going to World Series games.
That's true.
Basketball.
Do they
games.
go to NASCAR? Has president?
I think so. I think Bush went to NASCAR.
I just saw this discussion on Twitter between Democrats. Like, I thought that was an interesting question. Like, what would be the equivalent on the left side?
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking like Grateful Dead concert at like a Ben & Jerry's shop opening. Bernie Sanders like parachutes in with a parachute made from rainbows.
I was about to say rainbows. You're on the same wavelength here. Big rainbow parachute going into the Ben & Jerry's opening. But that's not really like a big event. Like
it'd have to be like the big. Like, what's the big? It's just Hollywood.
Yeah, I guess
Oscars.
Well, yeah, they do kind of do stuff like that, I guess. But yeah, going to the opening of some crazy movie or something, maybe.
Hamilton.
Did one of the guys get run out of Hamilton? Mike Pence.
They all started lecturing him from the stage. Yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah, Dan had mentioned the lighting up the White House with the rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of pandering.
Yeah.
Right? Is that pandering?
I guess.
I think
Virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling. So Trump is NASCAR signaling.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool. You get the
cool.
limo driving.
It doesn't
around.
bother me at all. It actually kind of confused me why it bothers. Because
this is what we always talk about. Is that the same thing the presidents have been doing for decades?
Yeah.
Trump does it, and it's like, why this is a problem?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it.
People have a real visceral reaction to NASCAR.
But he's so Trump though. Like just driving around the limo or around the.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he's sitting in the
he
back.
did a flyover too, like
in the buzz.
Air Force
Yeah.
One.
I like the idea that maybe this wasn't scheduled, the plane, and it's flying over, and Trump's like, "Hey, let's buzz him."
Yeah.
He's knocking on the pilot.
Did he throw stuff out of the plane like fried chicken or anything?
They love me.
Airdrop some MAGA hats. I never know to say MAGA. MAGA.
MAGA. So you ever watch NASCAR? Not a big NASCAR guy. You look like you.
I don't get. Yeah, I just look fat, but
that's not what I said.
But I don't get why.
You look white with the beard, and you could be a NASCAR guy.
I had friends that were, because I grew up around sand dunes, so everybody was into buggies and stuff. So like they were really into racing, and they worked on cars. I didn't get it. Like once it's around one time, I've got the gist of it, and then it keeps happening.
They're going again.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
That happened to me. I took my son. First, we went to monster trucks and had a blast.
Uh-huh.
The next year, we went to motocross. And when like 5 minutes in, we were bored out of our minds. Because they're just going around in a circle. It's cool they go on the jumps over and over again, but it's like they do it so much that it's like walking. It's like watching a person walk. It makes a person jumping on a motorcycle as mundane as somebody walking on the sidewalk.
Yeah. I've seen
exhausting.
I've seen a few races just on TV, and we'd sit down and watch them for a few hours. And yeah, it was, okay.
A few hours?
Yeah. Because they're long races.
Wow.
But,
you just fast forward it. Record it, fast forward it.
Yeah. I could never get into it myself.
People like it.
I think it's cool.
And you can have it. If you like it, I want you to enjoy it.
I think it's cool. I think there's probably a lot more to it than we see. Because any sport you get into, it's
the same.
I was this way with baseball for a long time. I didn't get it. And I had a friend, Paul, my friend Paul, and he said, no, there's a lot going on in baseball that you don't see. Because I'm like, they're just standing there. It's like, you got to watch the strategy. You got to watch how the players are shifting. You got to, and I'm like, whoa. And it's this whole world that opens up, And I'm sure it's the same thing with NASCAR.
Yeah, me with boxing. I got really interested in boxing for a while. And suddenly boxing matches where I watched tons of them. I watched all the original, famous matches and stuff. Because I had done some sparring and gotten into what's going through your head, and I just got punched constantly.
What's going through your head is the other guy's fist.
Yeah.
Actually, this happened to me with Adam Ford. When I visited his house in Michigan, he's like, "Hey, we're gonna watch the fight, UFC fight," and I'd never really watched one before. And so we sit down and he's explaining, this guy, you got to know this guy's record. He's coming into this and that, and this guy that. And you're just like, whoa! I just thought they just went in and punched each other. I didn't know. I didn't know there was a whole thing to it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
next story.
Well, Biden is in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Biden is in trouble because he's not getting a lot of turnout at these caucuses. So, but he has a plan. You know what his plan is? The Biden campaign is now offering 1 month of free AOL in exchange for rally attendance.
Sweet.
It's a good idea.
That comes on a CD.
It comes on a CD or floppy disk, your choice. This Babylon Bee subscriber Phil Van Klinken submitted this idea.
Van Klinken.
Phil Van Klinken. What does that sound like to you?
That's my favorite president.
Van Klinken? He served a good 8 years. Van Klinken did.
Yeah.
So now that we've mocked our subscribers, what were you going to say about
I just don't know anything about AOL. I was never part of it.
You didn't have AOL?
I didn't.
So you didn't have the... Wait, when you dialed up, did it still do the beep? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like all these demons screaming.
Yeah, it starts off pleasant enough, and then it just descends into the apocalypse.
But we probably have this like mental response to it, like, oh, the internet is coming.
And then there's the weird beep, beep. Well, it's like...
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, like, to us at the time, it sounded like the sound of technology. Like, to us, it was like...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like you had this positive mental response to it.
It was like a robot awakening.
Yeah. It's like a monkey if they played a screeching demon noise and then dropped a little food pellet or something. That's like for us. We hear the screeching noise. We know the internet is coming.
Yeah.
And eventually you'd hear the screeching noise, and then you'd be like, oh, internet.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm lost in this analogy now.
Well, they would do mental conditioning, like Pavlovian responses. Like you hear a noise, and then the food's coming.
Well, to me, it's like you're just proud of it, like because it's new. And it's like, the entire World Wide Web is opening before our ears. But then now that it's boring, it's like, okay, we don't need the sound anymore. It's really loud.
So they just stopped the sound.
Remember how weird it was at first to be like, wait, we'll be online all the time? Like you won't connect and then disconnect.
Yeah, I know. I had friends that got, I think it was DSL was one of the early. Like you would get DSL and it was, I think my AOL modem was 56K or whatever. And they're getting like...
Yeah, I remember when like a photo...
256.
Slowly load.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Wow. Or that was revolutionary in video when you could like watch video and just click and watch it.
We used to like, when we got excited, we wanted to watch something on E-Bombs World or whatever, we would just download the video and save it to our hard drive. And it'd take like an hour. Now I have the video saved on my hard drive. And my friends would come over. I'm like, have you seen all the funny videos I've collected across the internet? I have dozens. Nice. I have literally dozens.
My friend was obsessive about recording, like getting movies off of like Kazam or Kazaa.
Yeah.
Kazaa, yeah. But half the time he'd get these like bootlegged ones where somebody's filming it from inside of the theater, from their coat.
Oh, yeah.
But he'd still, out of pride, he'd still watch it.
Like, I got this movie.
Yeah. He's like, what, you don't want in on this? You want to watch this right now? I got it early. It's not even in theaters yet or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to watch some guy's coat video.
I had a friend that was big on, like that. He was big on Pirate Bay, and he would just download movies, and he's like, I got this new movie. And you're like, do you want to watch it? And he's like, no, I don't really have any interest in it. But I just download all the movies that come out.
Yeah. My dad did that at Blockbuster. He had that five you always have 5 DVDs at a time,
Oh, yeah.
And you can go in and swap them out any time. So he would just come home and just record all of them into a library. Did I already tell this story?
I don't think so.
So he had this massive
Is there any urine involved?
collection. Yeah, there's no urine.
No, you haven't.
But he got all these movies that he didn't even know what they were. It became such an obsession that he had this huge... He was trying to copy the entire store to his house. 5 DVDs at a time. And he had them in these hilarious categories because it wasn't like the normal categories they have there where it's like action, comedy, drama. It's like Deela, and then that's like all the girl movies. But then there's like...
Deela?
That's his wife's name. My stepmom. And then there's, he'd have like Western or whatever, but then he had Seagal, and it's just like all Steven Seagal
movies. A true connoisseur.
Yeah.
At Nicolle Buster.
But there'd be these like really bad movies. I'm like, Dad, do you know what this movie is? He's like, oh, I don't know. I just go to the next one on the shelf and copy it. How much money is spent on blank DVDs? Anyway, that's that story.
Excellent. That is that story.
My dad's a character.
Yeah. We need an episode centered on Ethan's dad.
Yeah, we should.
The episode. Oh, we did do fathers. We did do a father episode.
He's getting pretty old, so.
Yeah, so it's kind of amazing. Like, I think over the fall, I was thinking about who would win the Democratic nomination, and I couldn't see any way that anyone other than Biden would win just because he's such a powerhouse in terms of he was the vice president.
But I never got that. Like, nobody really cared about him then.
I guess nobody's passionate about him. It's just, I guess it's Biden. Like that, it felt like that to me.
It is amazing. Like if you're into politics, you get who he is. But if you go out in the normal people on the street, who's Joe Biden? It's amazing how few people know who he is.
Was it that he was in that diner where that guy didn't know who he was?
Yeah.
Did you show me that, Dan? I think he was standing there and he's like, I'm Joe Biden. And he's like, who? And he goes, I was the vice president for 8 years. I'm going to make sure I'm not messing this up, but I think that's what happened. And the guy was like, okay, cool. And he just goes back to watching his TV at the diner. It's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like one of those things that some of these other guys I don't see, like Buttigieg is like this mayor of a small town, and he's going to be the guy.
To me, I
don't know. I don't get
our
it.
last two presidents, I felt that way at the beginning when I
That's true. That's true.
Like when I first saw Obama, I was like, it's never going to happen. He has this weird middle name, Hussein. And Obama sounds like Osama, and like it doesn't. And who is this guy? Like it's just so weird. And then now it's hard to believe it makes sense now looking back.
Yeah.
And then Trump, right. Like he'd ever be president.
Yeah, I totally felt exactly.
So now the moment I feel that thing about somebody like Buttigieg,
I'm like, uh-oh.
I immediately go, oh no, he's gonna be president. Because he's got a weird name and he's weird looking and it doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense. People who vote...
He's not that weird looking, but...
People who vote are weird. Weirdos.
Buttigieg. But I don't have to say that. I hope we don't have to... Can you imagine a future where we have to say Buttigieg a lot?
Where we have to say President Pete Buttigieg. Former mayor of South Bend, Indiana.
Can we just like change the pronunciation to something like Buttigieg or something, like make it easier?
I think when I first saw it, I thought Buttigieg or something.
Buttigieg.
That's what it looks like.
Booty. Just call him, no?
That's a good joke.
Thanks.
We should do a joke about how his name sounds like Booty.
Yeah, let's do that.
Looks like Booty.
He could have his own song. Jennifer Lopez song.
Does she have a Booty song?
I don't know. She's known for
the Booty song
stuff.
Wow. Why don't we talk about books?
Let's do it.
And now, the Babylon Bee's topic of the week.
Books.
Yep.
So readable.
So white with words.
White. Wow.
With
That's
words
true.
on them.
There's no books with black pages. It's messed up.
Maybe there are.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe like a children's picture book with a page that's like set at nighttime, the dark stars. It would be a black page, white text.
So, what was the first book that you read? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, at an early age, just picture books.
Hungry
whatever.
Caterpillar.
Hungry, yeah, something like that. I developed a real extreme love for reading in like the 3rd and 4th grade. And discovered the concept of the novel, and it was just, it was like to the point where I was just in my room. I'd go home, do homework, go to my room, and read for 6 hours novels.
Wow!
I was obsessed. And
I was not like that.
Really?
Yeah.
What was yours?
I did read. I read some, but I never got the bug. Like I wouldn't read full series. I wouldn't read, but I read some. Like I read the Hardy Boys.
I read a lot of Hardy Boys, yeah.
I read some Stephen King. I remember I read Misery, and I can't remember what else. I read a little bit of Neil Gaiman. Is it Gaiman or Gaiman?
I don't know. Wasn't allowed.
Oh, yeah, you weren't allowed to read those. Jurassic Park.
Although I do need to come back to Stephen King, because
I
want to talk a little bit about it.
But yeah, so like through high school and stuff, and it wasn't until out of high school when suddenly reading was purely my choice.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly I started diving into, a lot of it was when I got into apologetics, philosophy, a lot of that stuff. C.S. Lewis, which led to the G.K. Chesterton bug.
G.K. Chesterton.
It's going to get happening a lot this topic.
So many times.
But then the thing that really got me a bug for fiction, because I actually hadn't read a lot of fiction in my life, was reading to my kids. I started reading all these books that I'd always intended to read, but for some reason I never read a lot of fiction novels. And now I read them like crazy to my kids.
So the interesting thing to me about books is that often if I return to an old book, I can remember what I was going through in my life when I read that book.
Yeah, that's true.
Or where I was sitting when I read it.
That's me with some albums too, music.
It happens to me with music a lot too. Some with movies and video games, but music probably equally so. You can listen to an album and remember So it's interesting to me because I feel like it really is tied in with development and embracing your values, creating your values, or discovering the values that are out there, I guess, as Chesterton would say.
G.K. Chesterton.
Discovering objective truth. That might have been my first time getting Chesterton.
So what do we do? We're doing like our...
Yeah, why don't we...
our top 5, or does it matter how about top? We'll just kind of go off on books for a while.
Yeah, we could talk about our favorites.
This could be fiction or nonfiction. Just books that impacted us.
You
can see we planned this out a lot.
Let's do anything you want, although mine will be more fiction.
Okay.
Because I like fiction better.
Mine will probably mostly be fiction.
I like fake things more than real things. Well, yeah, I'm not going to go in any particular order, but let me talk about the best book ever written, Lord of the Rings.
Okay. I've still never read the third one.
Okay, and I want to use this to talk about, because you talked about how you've discovered reading for pleasure when you were older.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that school a lot of times ruins kids for reading.
Yeah.
Because they pick horrible books. I hated literature classes and stuff because, this whole what is I specifically remember freshman year of high school talking about the Scarlet Letter. I think it was a Scarlet Letter. And there was some rosebush the author was describing. We had to write a 5-page essay on what the rosebush represents. And it's I don't know, and I don't care, and I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like schools do a very bad job of telling kids you can read this book and enjoy it because it's a very good story.
Yeah.
You don't have to stop and analyze everything. That really made me hate reading for a while.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I mean, I think part of it is I just didn't like being told what to do. So if you tell me this is the book you're going to read, then
that's
I immediately don't want to.
That's absolutely part of it. You must read this book. Okay.
It would be awesome if it would just, here's a list of approved books.
Yeah.
You pick one.
Yeah, there was some of that where they would say, here's 100 books to pick from for your report and pick one that sounds interesting. But they always pick from, I feel like a lot of the books that are considered classics now are not, should not be on that list because they're not good books. And I think a lot of times they're picked.
What are some of your hot takes for books that should not be classics?
Great Gatsby.
I remember I didn't want to read that. Have you read it?
Yeah, I had to read it in freshman year of high school or something.
I don't feel like I have the authority to say that. It's bold.
Yeah, Great Gatsby for sure.
You would call it the mediocre Gatsby.
The 2-star out of 5 Gatsby. Oh, what's the guy that wrote... it wasn't a novel, I don't think, but he wrote about the wilderness all the time.
Hemingway?
Is it Hemingway?
Ernest Hemingway?
Walden?
Emerson.
Oh.
Yeah, that guy.
Ralph Waldo
Emerson.
Okay.
And he would just write these, this whole 300-page book collections of his musings in the forest. It's existentialist. It's just oh my, please kill me. Please take me out to this forest and let a tree fall on top of me. Horrible.
That I may be devoured by weasels.
So this is your hot take for today, guys. Okay. Those are bad.
All right.
I actually like Moby Dick. I think Moby Dick's pretty
finished
good.
Moby Dick. I got
I have trouble finishing it as well.
My audiobook died on me and I lost my place.
I like it until he gets to that one chapter where he starts describing whales.
Yeah, there's certain chapters where it's purely educational and you're like, no, maybe I should have got the abridged version.
And I've heard people say that all the information in there is wrong as well.
He just made it up. It's fan fiction. Whaling fan fiction. The fascinating thing about Moby Dick, if you don't know this, is that the author never became famous for it.
Yeah, which is
he was still working at Ellis Island as just working in the museum or there, and just working, normal job, some guy. But yeah, that's a manly book. You read that and you feel manly reading it. It's good.
Yeah, you just want to go out and kill a whale, or something.
Well, it feels very much like an old pirate sitting there telling you a story. It's really,
yeah,
it's good.
I agree. I was trying to look up some other classics, but I can't think of any more at the moment. So let me go back to Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
So, we had a teacher, I think it was in 6th grade, that all of a sudden out of nowhere he's a total nerd, and he goes, "We're going to read The Hobbit." And it's it's not on... I don't know if this is common, so tell me, listeners, if this is common, but for someone to be like, we're reading The Lord of the Rings in elementary school, or middle school, I guess. Huh. It doesn't seem like that's very commonly assigned. Like, it's not in that list of classic novels, even though it is a classic novel.
Yeah, I don't remember if we did or not. I don't think we did.
And it was a total nerd thing, and we'd go through every chapter, and you could tell that he loved this book. Like,
yeah.
He was super excited by this book, and we had to go into the history of Middle Earth, and it was like this whole world opened up for me. So I went to the library, and I think this was kind of by accident, but I saw another cool fantasy book. I want to read some fantasy. So I checked out The Two Towers, which is the second book of Lord of the Rings.
Oh, so you just did the first book?
No.
Or did you do The Hobbit?
The Hobbit, which is the prequel.
Okay, yeah.
So then I go check out the second book, so I skipped Fellowship of the Ring entirely. I didn't know it was part of the same series. I check out Two Towers, and it starts out with the scene of Boromir, and he's been killed by these arrows, and he's lying on the tree, and Legolas and Aragorn and stuff, they're trying to figure out what to do next. And and so it was very confusing, but it was actually a really dramatic way to start it. Like, oh, this guy got killed, and they're trying, the party is splitting up, and they're trying to go. So then later I learned that there were more books. So then I went back and got Fellowship, reread Two Towers, and then read Return of the King. And I fell in love. And every time I read Lord of the Rings, I feel like I'm returning to this land of Middle Earth. Like it's this fantasy land that exists somewhere that I go to. And I hang out, and I smoke pipeweed with Bilbo and Frodo and stuff.
Yeah, I think I had, like, for some reason, resisted Tolkien for, like, most of my life. I don't know why. I always had I don't know why I thought I wouldn't like it. But when everybody that I likes it. So people with good taste like it. So I finally read The Hobbit to my kids. And I read it to myself first. I was like, this is not just good, like, it's, I don't know. It's a book you get lost in. I think that's what Tolkien does, is he brings you into a world and you're lost in it, and you remember it and you want to go back there after you're done.
Yes, exactly.
And so I really wanted to take my kids there. So
you scheduled a family vacation to Middle Earth.
Yeah, and I was amazed how much they dug it. Like when I read it to them, and I did think that if they sat there and tried to read it to themselves, I don't know if it would have had the same impact. It's like when we read it out loud together, it was really special. Yeah, that was one of the most special books I read out loud to my kids. I can't wait to read it to my other two. So that's in one of my books for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how every time I reread Lord of the Rings, I come up with something new. I come out with new observations and a new focus. So this last time that I reread it about a year ago, I noticed that Tolkien often, one of the main themes that he hits on is this passage of time, and how, like, this world that he's describing, it's within the Lord of the Rings book, the events that happen are such a small part of the overall history of Middle Earth. And so, like, when they get to Tom Bombadil, he's this kind of eternal creature who's been there since the beginning. You know, he talks, and he's got this great monologue or soliloquy or whatever you want to call it, where he goes on about all the empires that have risen and fallen, and he doesn't care about Sauron. And he's like, Sauron will fall. He's like, don't worry about him. It's like, he doesn't want to get involved because he's just like, he's just another one of these evil creatures that comes along, and they get defeated and they fade away. And it was actually really encouraging to me, because we get stuck in this mindset of, like, you know, whatever evil we're facing now. We hear this in politics a lot. Like, this is an unprecedented time, and this is
the Antichrist. The end times are here.
Yeah, this is an unprecedented time for our republic, and this is the worst time we are facing.
Election is the most important election of our lifetime.
Babylon Bee article, right?
This may be.
And so to go, you know what? Take a deep breath. Step back.
Be Tom Bombadil.
Be Tom Bombadil, everybody. And if you would just watch the movies, you wouldn't know who that is. So read the books. All right, your pick. What book are you thinking of in your head right now, sir?
Well, another book that had a huge impact on me was Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. I feel like that's absolutely. Like everybody who says that, but
yes,
that was a book that I read a gazillion times. I recorded the audiobook for myself.
Really?
So I would learn it better. So I would record a few chapters at a time, and then I'd listen to it while I worked.
You would say the word.
I'd read it out loud.
You read it out loud to yourself. Yeah. Like on a cassette, or was this?
What did I use? I think it may have been a cassette.
8-track. This was on a vinyl record.
This would be like 2000-ish.
Gramophone.
So I can't remember what I was using at that time. But yeah.
That's cool.
Record it and listen to it. Read it. I did have cassettes. I remember when I had cassettes I rented from the library. Maybe it had I can't remember. There's like the guy who played the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, Peter something, fancy British guy.
Peter Beast.
But yeah, I mean, and that's one reason I know the first half of the book much better than the second half. Yeah. But all those basic concepts.
If I remember the last chapter was like forgettable. Then he started talking about evolution and all this.
I remember the very end being really interesting because he was talking about art and creativity and stuff. I remember being kind of fascinated by that last part. It really made sense to me. But yeah, just a lot of the basic concepts of why is there a God. It really, the basic arguments of mere Christianity really have stuck with me. I really don't doubt. I have no doubt about there being a God almost ever. Like some people find it very hard to believe. I think the stuff I struggle with more is in the details. Is when I get more struggly. And it's like, how do you know these details? How do you know it's exactly this or whatever? But like the idea that there is a God, that he's moral, and that that he's involved in our lives in some way. Those basics, he lays them out so well that I don't know. Anyway, Mere Christianity is a good book.
In conclusion. Yeah, I'll just chime in that my grandpa died when I was 13, like just before my 13th birthday, and we were, ransacking the library at his house, and I got a copy of Mere Christianity after he passed away, and I read it.
Ransacking.
Yeah, whatever the word is. I mean, we were allowed. They said, you guys want any books that Grandpa had? And so I took Mere Christianity, and also Hal Lindsey's The Late Great Planet Earth, which didn't have quite as much of an impact. But Mere Christianity, and I remember being in my room reading Mere Christianity, and it was very similar, just like, wow, there are great philosophical, moral arguments for the existence of God and for Christ and what he did. It was amazing to me. I still use, in my head, I still think about the logical arguments that Lewis used because they're so good. The analogies he makes are perfect, And what's great about it is it's not just cerebral, like, here are proofs that there is God, but it's like how you live your Christian life. And, there was a lot of stuff in there about Christian living specifically. I think that was the book where he used the analogy of the piano, and he talked about how every human act is amoral. It's just like keys on a piano. And so you can like, there's a time and place for everything, but you have to follow sheet music. And so you can't just hit everything at the same time. So he was talking about how like people will overemphasize one thing,
right.
And that's like someone slamming the key over and over again, and it's like, that's not time for that. Like, it's basically an argument about moderation, but I think about that a lot.
Yeah, I always go back to Lewis. I think this is in Mere Christianity, but he definitely wrote it. Because Lewis was one of those authors I got so into. I read so many of his essays and stuff.
That might not even been
what it's in, but yeah, if you look at creation from the perspective of a character in a story,
right?
Like the idea of things the moment somebody says we should know this about God, it's like, would a character in a story know that about their author? Like
exactly.
Their authors all around them. It's in everything that they are in, but except for the author's face and the author's voice.
Yeah,
like the author exists all around them, but he's outside of it.
Right.
He's all of it, but he's not in it. It's I don't know. So I find those analogies endlessly fascinating, and also with the decisions that when I think about writing stories, when you think about the decisions God has made that you get confused about or whatever. From the perspective of the characters in the book, you go, why would the author ever put us through this? Why would the author ever do this? Why would this chapter exist? But as a storyteller, you understand that there's be a boring book.
No, it gives you a good sense of humility in your place. Like, it's like, I demand that I know this from God. It's like, who are you?
And stories are about transformation. The characters can never transform to become what they're going to become if they don't go through these things. But I guess I do have to say that it was Lewis that led me to Chesterton, and I'll never forget the day. Okay, here it goes.
G.K. Chesterton.
You're getting sick of it. Well, stop mentioning Chesterton.
But when I read Orthodoxy, for the first time. Actually, no, I may have read Heretics first because he wrote the book Heretics first, which is him taking on all these different ideas of his time, and he's kind of jokingly called them all heretics. I mean, he means they are heretical ideas, but he's in his joking, jovial Chesterton way. So after he wrote that book, then people are always like, well, then what is your big idea? If they're all heretics, so he wrote Orthodoxy, and that's kind of his statement of faith, why he believes what he believes. And Orthodoxy is, one thing that's nice about Lewis is he's very original in the way he makes his arguments. Chesterton is like that times 1,000. Like he just is such an original voice. Nobody could imitate it.
Well, it doesn't feel like he's making arguments.
Right.
Feels like he is just genuinely thinking out loud about things and writing them down.
Right. Well, it's a different style. Well, I mean, we've been reading a lot of his essays that aren't quite as straightforward as some of his essays, and Orthodoxy are a little more, because the whole book's about a certain topic.
Sure, yeah.
It's a little easier to follow, kind of, but he's a different style of writing.
I could never get through Orthodoxy. I've tried a few times. I've been enjoying when we've been meeting up and reading In Defense of Sanity, because it is more piecemeal. And let's think about this. So maybe once I've accustomed my brain to...
You do have to accustom yourself to the way he thinks and talks. Yeah. He'll refer to things... For instance, Mad Men or Cycles and Circles, like you'll start to realize he'll refer to these things a lot, and you'll go, "Oh, I get that idea now." And he keeps bringing it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, he speaks in a language. But I think the thing that Chesterton really blew my mind about was wonder. Like he really talks about wonder, your place in the world, how fascinating this life is, how little we know. Really basic ideas, but he writes about it so beautifully. I don't think I've ever recovered from that. Like it's changed my view of life. Looking from a humble place, choosing to be the pygmy, looking at life through he says, through a microscope instead of a telescope.
Yeah. I like when we read Chesterton how it seems like he's high all the time.
Yeah, there are certain ones where it really sounds...
I think when that cheese essay we all just read.
That was just awesome.
It's great. He's talking about cheese and his whole... I don't know if he has a point, but he's talking about cheese.
Yeah.
And all the great poets have never written
this whole analogy. How everywhere you go, everyone has their own cheese. And it's like a special, unique thing that you're tasting their culture. And he's talking about how sad it is that like that's going away. Everything else, how he talked about how he wanted to murder the waiter who tried to give him biscuits with his cheese, because that basically means crackers. Because he was talking about how the bread is original and the cheese is original, and now they just want this packaged stuff. If he tasted like American cheese, he'd probably lose his mind. He'd want to murder somebody.
Just immediately catch fire
and
explode. Yeah, so what I love about him is there was that essay where he was talking about painting his ceiling, and he wakes up in the morning, he looks at this blank ceiling, and he's like, I need to put chalk on the end of my broom and paint
brooms and paintbrushes,
paintbrushes and paint my ceiling, And he'll talk about how he's talking to his wife about this.
Yeah,
he's like, "We're gonna paint the ceiling," and I like how disruptive he would have been. And I don't know if he actually said these things out loud.
Yeah,
But in that cheese essay, he's talking about how he's all ranting at the waiter about cheese, and do you even put any thought into your cheese? You dare to offer me biscuits? And like.
No, he is like almost every time we read him, at least at one point in almost every essay, we all laugh out loud. Like they're genuinely funny stuff. Chesterton says it's still funny today.
The waiter brought me cheese, indeed, but cheese cut up into contemptibly small pieces. And it is the awful fact that instead of Christian bread, he brought me biscuits. Biscuits! To one who had eaten the cheese of 4 great countrysides. Biscuits! To one who had proved anew for himself the sanctity of the ancient wedding between cheese and bread. I addressed the waiter in warm and moving terms. I asked him who he was that he should put asunder those whom humanity had joined. Like, can you imagine serving? I just imagine that this waiter like serving this guy some biscuits and cheese.
Yeah, there's that one where he talks about this giant speech he gives this guy who can't get his drawer open.
Oh yeah. Just think of all the comedy that you're involved in here.
Well, imagine that you are in a battle with
that's right,
a demon or something like that, and you are the war
and
for the ages.
And then you will no longer be frustrated.
You will shout with glory. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've appreciated you, Ethan, for reintroducing me to Chesterton, because I did try to read Orthodoxy around the same. After I read Mere Christianity, everybody said, "Oh, you need to read Orthodoxy," and I tried to read it. I know
it's a different way of thinking.
It's different. Yeah. It's not.
But I totally recommend if you are interested in Chesterton, it's really good for reading out loud and discussing because it helps to digest it with other people, especially someone who's already read some. Maybe
we'll get those Chesterton recordings on here sometime when we do those readings.
Yeah.
Another book that influenced me greatly was Pilgrim's Progress. I don't know if you ever read it.
I started. I never got into it.
Yeah, super good. It was a similar thing, I think, where I picked up a copy for $1 at a thrift store and it just blew my mind. One of those things that really inspired me. What else? What else we got?
What did I answer on Twitter?
What did I put on? Oh yeah, so this all came from a Twitter thread that who started this Twitter thing?
I got invited. It's one of those ones where you
tag your friends to see what books they like. So we all started posting our as that shaped us, which is an interesting question because it's not the same as your favorite novels. Because my favorite novels would actually be different than the novels that shaped me, because it's at a certain time in your life. So I'm actually a huge Stephen King fan, and I've read almost everything he's ever written, but only over the last 2 years.
Wow, it's a lot of reading.
And then I just burned out and stopped reading him entirely. Well, basically because I had finished everything he'd written except the bad stuff. Because I read the Dark Tower series, which is basically his crowning achievement.
I've tried multiple times to get into that.
So the first book is great, the second book is great, the third book is great, the fourth book is...
I've heard everybody else tell me the first book is hard to get through.
Really, I loved it. It's just it's actually a collection of short stories. So it's just this gunslinger that's chasing this weird wizard guy through the desert, and it's just it's not very well connected. But
I wish books had a little summary at the end of each chapter, this is what you just.
This is what just happened.
I need that.
But the second and third books are crazy. It basically becomes this whole thing of it's a multiverse. Everything's connected. So. He's jumping back and forth in time, and characters are coming from other franchises. Characters are coming from Star Wars and Harry Potter and all this stuff. I don't even know if he's allowed to do legally, but things are coming in that this whole multiverse is coming together. But then the last book is horrible, and there's this giant spider in a diaper that has a face of a baby. What? And it's being cared for by a robot, and I did not know what was happening, and I stopped reading it. So I was kind of disappointed that it fizzled out at the end. But anyway, I really do Stephen King. He says crazy political things on Twitter, and he's kind of a controversial guy.
That's the weird thing about him is that he's such a good writer on Twitter. He's really bad at tweeting. He's so unoriginal and uninteresting. He sounds like a 13-year-old.
But what I do like about his stuff is there really is this very real it's like humans kind of searching for meaning and just it's kind of like how far can a human go. What lengths can you push a human to and have them retain sanity and retain their humanness? And he explores that topic a lot. And obviously not from a Christian perspective, but I think there's a lot to be learned from stuff like that. So Stephen King.
Totally.
My favorite would probably be one of his Dark Tower books or The Shining, maybe Misery.
I only recently started reading Charles Dickens, and it's probably only because this is the first one that I really, really dug into, though I love both Oliver Twist and David Copperfield. I really got into David Copperfield. I think probably because I didn't expect to. I thought it was going to be boring, but I was so wrapped up in those characters. And I think that part of the experience is I did mostly audiobook, and there's an excellent audiobook version of it. Richard Armitage, the guy that plays the hot Hobbit. Who's the hot Hobbit? Remember the good-looking Hobbit from the Hobbit movies? The king one?
You mean Thorin?
Yeah. Right, he's the good-looking Hobbit.
He's not the good-looking Hobbit.
He's attractive, though. It's just weird.
Thorin Oakenshield.
Because if you look at other Hobbit art,
the other Hobbit,
he looks like they always strive with giant noses and ears and stuff, but
he's not the one who actually gets involved in the romantic love triangle with the elf and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Forbidden love.
Those movies were a blur for me. Thorin Oakenshield. Yeah, he's the Oakenshield guy. But anyway, he read it, and he does this amazing... He does all the voices so really well acted.
That's great.
Highly recommended. He did this... when he does, the voice of the fisherman guy, and, he has this emotion behind it. It's so good. I think that what that awoke in me was that how much character does drive story. Because, stuff happens in Charles Dickens, but his characters are just so rich that you just want to be around them and hear them interact.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed Stephen King's On Writing when he talks about how a lot of times he just puts his characters in situations, starts writing the chapter, and it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, We're going to let the characters bounce off each other and see what happens. So it is interesting, that character-driven element. Mm-hmm. I always thought people sketched out novels and just kind of went like, this happens, this happens, this happens. Mm-hmm. To see your character actually drive it is interesting.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing for me when I try to write. I do tend to focus on plot, and my characters become very, very, I don't know, just basic.
Very possumy.
Possumy, yeah. Or I don't know really who they are, they are generic is like the right word. They're just not, they're not fleshed out. And I don't know how you flesh a character out before you start writing it. I don't know if that's just, you just got to jump in and start writing them or what. But yeah, so Dickens, I get it. I get why he's so popular. I know that I've read a couple of his books.
I've tried a few times, and I actually like it, but I just haven't finished. So I'm going to have to.
They're long. The weird thing about them is they're written in a time where like each chapter would come out every week or whatever in a newspaper. So to read them all back to back is kind of exhausting. It's not really meant, that's not how they're meant to be read, yeah. But I really do think they're meant, I read Oliver Twist out loud to my son, and it reads out loud very well. It's a very fun book to read out loud.
I'll throw in there Screw Tape Letters. That was a huge impact on me. Later in life, but I really enjoyed some sci-fi like Dune. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Those were just amazing to me. H.P. Lovecraft is one of my favorite authors. I've read almost everything he's ever written. And again, that's something I just discovered recently.
I've read like just the one with like the fish people.
Yeah.
Innsmouth.
Innsmouth, yeah.
Just one, it's one more Chesterton book, but The Ball and the Cross.
G.K. Chesterton.
If we're going to talk fiction, because he wrote fiction as well.
Setting a record here.
The Ball and the Cross is awesome. It's about an atheist and a Catholic, and they want to have a duel to the death about the existence of God and how they've insulted each other's beliefs. But all of society is trying to stop them because they care more about just not fighting or just not, not getting so. Just be polite. Yeah. Polite society is just trying to stop them. So yeah, it's like a buddy comedy. And they keep interacting with different philosophies throughout the book while they're being chased by the cops and all of society. But it's such a great concept, and I love it.
It amazed me how cinematically it was written, like this chase sequence after chase sequence.
Yeah.
They kind of naturally rolled into each other. Yeah.
Very British comedy, yeah. I could imagine it being like an Edgar Wright film if he was a Christian.
Who is that?
He did like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. 1984. Anything dystopian you like? I read 1984 more recently, a few years ago, and I don't.
A lot of it didn't stick with me. A lot of these more complicated books don't stick with me.
I don't understand. Again, these are the things like this list of books. Like if these had been assigned to me in high school or something, maybe I wouldn't have liked them because they were assigned to me. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, why didn't they assign these? You'd have all these kids super interested in reading. 1984, I think, obviously just so insightful.
Animal Farm.
Animal Farm is also great, and an hour-long read or whatever.
Yeah, it's so short.
You can just barrel through it, which is awesome.
Yeah. The Roald Dahl books had a big impact on me. Just made me excited about reading books to my kids. So I think I've talked about that plenty in the past. But
yeah,
he's an author that excites me, and it's just because seeing the way my kids' eyes started to glow, like as I read to them. And I remember especially like when I finished the BFG, the way that the ending was just, they were just like, there's this kind of like mind blown thing going on. Like sad for it to be over kind of thing.
Yeah. I'll just say that I think one thing that I learned was just that it's okay to enjoy a book just for a good narrative, and I think God really did give us literature as a gift in itself. We've talked about this before, how Christians tend to think like a story has to directly point to Christ.
Right, yeah, it has to be like a Bible story.
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of like Frank Peretti growing
It
up.
has to be fireproof.
Yeah. I mean, I read a lot of Frank Peretti growing up where he does, it's specifically set in a church thing, or there's specifically demons attacking. And he's a great writer, and, some of those books are good, obviously. But I think I have been able to expand more recently and go, narrative is something that God has given us, and stories. Yeah. God gave us stories, and that makes makes us human in a way that, the animals don't enjoy stories. Mm-hmm. There's a line in Stephen King's It, which I thought was one of his worst books, but there's a line in the beginning where he says, there's a teacher character, a writer, a Bill character, I think, and he's talking about how he's teaching a class or something, and it's kind of like that thing where there's a war in the school going on between the people who want to read real literature and the people who just want to read like monster stories or whatever. And his character likes the monster stories or something.
Oh yeah.
When he says something like, "Can't a story just be a story? Can it just be a good story?" Because I think in the class they wanted to analyze. Well, the monster represents, this and that. It's like, can it just be a good monster story? And obviously it was Stephen King just speaking through his character, but I have come to appreciate that perspective that I can just watch read a good monster story or a good horror story or a good fantasy and be like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. The whole idea that narrative makes just, why do humans want to tell stories? Like, I think we're going to talk to Brian Goodall about this coming up.
Yeah. This would be a good preview for that.
But yeah, it's, to me, there's something very theological just in the idea that we thrive on story.
And we see meaning in a sequence of events.
Yeah.
Where an animal would just say, I ate, I slept, I pooped, Yeah. And we see meaning there.
I don't even know if they'd say that. They'd just be like,
Rawr.
I currently am hungry.
Sure. What would a bear say about it?
Yeah.
What would a bearative?
I say we save one more book each for the subscriber portion.
Okay, I will talk about.
Don't say what it's going to be. It's a surprise.
I will talk about a series of my life where I read, like maybe 50 novels.
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey. No, about 40 to 50 novels, and I'll tell you what they are.
That's going to be long.
Well, it'll be short.
Okay. All right, and we'll read some more news stories.
Let's do hate mail.
Oh yeah, hate mail. Are we doing love mail first or hate mail?
Do we want to do love mail first? Yeah, let's do love mail first.
Love mail, baby.
Well, all of us at the Babylon Bee were extremely touched to have received an email from somebody whose name I do not know, because
I figure you have the email. Like, it's not.
I do not, because
notes, but it's not.
I have a new phone and my front app is not logging in.
Okay.
We received an email from a lady named Dawn, and she told us that 1 year ago her spouse of 17 years passed away. And
she said he was 40, 41.
Yeah, 41 years old, I believe. And kind of said, believe it or not, one of the things that got me through this tough year was the Babylon Bee podcast. And that's one of those things where I'm like, really, the Babylon Bee?
Your jaw just kind of hit the floor when somebody...
Yeah, like us just talking about the news in a silly way helps somebody like this. And it's like, not that I think we deserve that praise, but it was interesting to me that, and encouraging to us, that God used the Babylon Bee podcast in that way. God used just us trying to chill out about the news to help her out a little bit. You got some of
Yeah, I have the email here.
You want to read a bit of it, maybe?
Yeah, she said, when you cry every day, the only way you can deal with life is to try to find humor in everything. Then I discovered the new Babylon Bee podcast. You guys were a lifeline. I could still keep up with what was going on, but through the lens of humor and absurdity. I can't tell you how hard my 14-year-old son and I would laugh at the dramatic readings of hate mail, which we really missed, by the way. And you have no idea how much we needed something to laugh at. I know you are probably tempted at sometimes to wonder if running a satire website really matters, but I can tell you firsthand that you are doing God's work. The world needs someone to make them laugh, and also show them how stupid and silly the people who desire to rule them really are. So thank you for your part in helping me through the worst year of my life. That's from Dawn.
Wow.
But yeah, I think that's an email that we all kind of... Like, Dawn, I don't know if she's even has she been replied to yet?
Yeah, I replied.
Or is this the reply?
I replied.
It took us a few days because we just kind of all sat around it in silence.
We were all sitting there in silence like, who wants to reply?
Yeah.
Like none of us felt worthy.
Should we do a special episode for her? Should we like send her a fruit basket? But Don, thank you so much. It's I don't know. I think all of us we think about what that would be like to have that horrible thing happen that you've had to go through, and there's just like me and Kyle just sat there and talked about like I don't know, I can't even pre-plan what I would do. I can't even think about it. I can't go there mentally.
Right.
And
I think God gives you the grace when it happens, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't begin to imagine if one of my family members, something like that were to happen. I mean,
but the idea that we could have any kind of help through that, that is a blessing to us, just for you to tell us that. Thank you.
God bless you. And listeners, keep Don in your prayers.
Yeah.
And because Don has specifically requested some hate mail.
Let's do some hate mail.
I really miss Adam Ford.
That's such a beautiful auto-tune.
It gets better every time I hear it.
We do need to get Dave to do a dramatic reading, though.
Yeah, okay.
Because Don has requested it.
Okay.
So let's do that.
What's the email?
Okay. Y'all are an abomination spreading your trash.
Y'all.
Why not spread truth and love?
Wow, poignant.
See, that one could use a Dave reading.
So Don, there's your Dave reading.
We're gonna do a Dave reading. Are we gonna do like a southern,
maybe
redneck?
a southern fiery preacher? Y'all are an abomination. Because there's the word abominations in there. We got to have like a southern.
But it gets very kind of it gets meaningful at the end.
Why not spread truth
and love?
Well,
we could just throw kumbaya on at the end. So it's like apocalyptic.
Why not spread truth?
Horror, screaming. Why not truth and love? Kumbaya. Something like that.
Well, instead of us imitating it, let's just see what Dave does.
Here it is.
Yes, y'all are an abomination spreading your trash. Why not spread truth and love? Kumbaya!
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we're going to be up on our subscriber portion with even more meandering nonsense. But on top of that, we'll talk about some new books, or a couple more books, and a couple more news stories.
The rest of this podcast is in our super exclusive premium subscriber lounge. If you're not a Babylon Bee subscriber, go to babylonbee.com/plans for full-length ad-free podcasts, access to our headline forum, 20% off the items in the Babylon Bee store, a gift, and more. Please drop us a review on iTunes and share the podcast with a friend. Feedback and love mail go to podcast@babylonbee.com. Follow Ethan at AxeCop and Kyle at _Kyle_man on Twitter. Kyle and Ethan would like to thank Seth Dillon for paying the bills, Adam Ford for creating their job, the other writers for tirelessly pitching headlines, the subscribers, and you, the listener. Until next time, this is Dave D'Andrea, the voice of the Babylon Bee, reminding you to sleep fully clothed and armed in case of a home invasion.
Yes, you might say that Daytona 500 is NASCAR related. Yes.